Hello.
So, bit of an interesting video for my channel. I've never really made one like this before, but it's one I've wanted to make for a long time because I really like Star Trek. And I've met people in my life, friends and just acquaintances and whatever, when they find out that I like Star Trek, there's kind of this morbid curiosity about it. You know, maybe they've seen clips of it online or they've heard other people talk about it or whatever, and I can tell that they want to get into it, but Star Trek is one of those things that is hard to get into. It's kind of like Marvel, where it's just there's so much stuff that it can be hard to know where to start or how to start, and you don't want to start watching the one thing that's going to be confusing, which it's understandable. So I wanted to make this video to explain Star Trek and what it is, and also where to start and how to get into it. Because Star Trek is so different. Over the years, it's found different things that work and different things that don't work. And so there's, between movies and TV shows and whatever, they all kind of have their own personality and style to them. So what I want to do is I'm going to kind of break this up, and I'm going to start with the more basic things, the ones that are going to explain Star Trek to you, that are going to be more welcoming for new viewers. And then I'm going to kind of branch off and tell you, kind of cater to your interest a little bit. And this video is going to kind of be a choose your own adventure sort of thing, because it's kind of how Star Trek is. Everyone has their own way of going about it and enjoying it, and there's no right way to do it. But I'm going to break it up into chapters, and maybe you'll watch part of this video and go watch some Star Trek, and then come back to it, and then watch something else, and watch how you want to watch it. That's all I'm saying. Just kind of do your own thing with it and enjoy Star Trek how you want to enjoy it, because that's the best way to do it. I'm also going to be, as we're exploring our new space, I'm going to have some different shots. We're going to try some different areas. We're just going to try some things out in this video. We're just going to have fun with it, see what happens. So, next segment. Okay, so before we get into actual recommendations on where to start, I wanted to give you a little bit of a preface for the three eras of Star Trek, because obviously Star Trek's been going since the 60s. It's important because that determines the kind of personality that the projects made during that time have, which will be important once you figure out what kind of Star Trek you like. It's also it's good to have sort of a frame of reference when I'm talking about these things, because I will be referencing that. Because the personality it's important to understanding the shows, I would say. Created by Gene Roddenberry, the first era I call the Roddenberry era, which is from the 1960s when the show started in 64. Editing Cameron's going to fact check that right now. I believe it's 64. It goes until about 91 or 92 when Roddenberry passed away. And this includes stuff like the original series and all the original movies. I believe it's all the original movies. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, it's on the screen right now. Come on, man. Just look it up before you record the video. And if I'm not, then I'm right. And I actually know what I'm talking about, so that's cool. So this era it's fun, it's silly, more than anything else. That's what the original series is. And the only thing is, if you're around my age, it's gonna feel dated. Anything you watch from this era, especially the 60s show, is gonna feel dated. The effects are not great. But that's not the point. The point is the characters and the adventure. So, you don't watch Roddenberry era Star Trek for the effects, except for some of the movies. So next is the Rick Berman era, and Rick Berman was a producer on The Next Generation from the beginning, and then Roddenberry was in charge of about the first couple of seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then he passed away. And so then after that, Rick Berman took over, and he ran The Next Generation. And then as Next Generation got more successful and more popular, he, started greenlighting other shows, and Star Trek kind of grew from there. In this era, you have mostly TV shows. You have Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, which I mentioned, Voyager, and Enterprise. But what I really like about the Rick Berman era is they do a really good job balancing the action and the spectacle of Star Trek with the ethical and moral problems that come up, which that's the stuff I dig, where just by exploring space, they encounter other people or other problems that don't have easy solutions. And so they kind of have to put a lot of extra thought into what's the best way to go about this, and how do we solve this problem? Because that's what's really interesting about it to me. The Berman era is where Star Trek gets a lot of the Star Trek is slow allegations, because a lot of these episodes, I would say, if you just jump into the middle, they're probably gonna feel slow if you're used to something more modern. But after you watch Star Trek and you get used to it, you don't even really notice it anymore. It's something you kind of got to get used to, but once you do, I'd say it's great. This new era is the Kurtzman era, because it's largely been in charge of a man named Alex Kurtzman, who was a writer on the first two Abrams movies. Him and Robert Orci wrote the first two Star Trek movies and some of the Transformers movies. And I believe Kurtzman was also in charge of the 2017 Mummy movie, so yeah. The new era is very much action-oriented. It's very much about special effects, and it is very snappy. It is very action-oriented. It's not really concerned with a lot of the Berman era ethical questions and moral debates that's basically non-existent here. Some of the projects in this era are obviously the Abrams movies, Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Discovery, Lower Decks, stuff like this. A lot of streaming stuff. For modern audiences, it's going to be more what you're used to, but I would say it is very different from earlier Star Trek, because it is definitely doing its own thing, I would say. So with that being said, now that you have some context and you have some framework, let's get into the first recommendation. In a new location. I figured I should give you a recommendation. Let's say you're the kind of person where you just want to dip your toes in. You just want to kind of see what all the fuss is about. You don't want to start with a TV show. You don't want to start with something easy. You want to start with a movie. Understandable. That's fine. The best movie to start with is Star Trek Beyond. It's technically the most recent Star Trek movie. It came out in 2016. It's the last of the Chris Pine movies. I know you're thinking. You're like, why am I starting with the last one? Because the first movie, the one I talked about earlier, Star Trek 09, that's the first one with Chris Pine. You can watch that one. I would say start with that if you really know literally nothing about Star Trek. You don't know what the Federation is. You don't know who Kirk and Spock are. You don't know shit about shit. Then yeah, start there. But the reason I say start with Beyond is because it's going to give you the right kind of tone and vibe, and it's going to give you a little bit of everything with Star Trek. It's going to give you some introspective, questions about space exploration and what happens and kind of space politics, and it's going to give you a lot of good action. It's going to give you a lot of good character moments. The movie was written by Simon Pegg, who plays Scotty. You probably know him from other things, like any of these roles on the screen right now. And he clearly has an appreciation for Star Trek. And I think that movie is just so fun. It's such a good movie to get people into Star Trek, I think, because it's such a good time and it's hard not to enjoy that movie. Even if you don't know anything about Star Trek, I think you can still get into it and enjoy it and have fun. And it'll give you a solid taste of what to expect from Star Trek. Obviously, as I said, everything has its own personality and style, but I think that Beyond is just so good at balancing the different tones of Star Trek in such a way, in one movie. I think it does that very, very well. And it has a little bit of everything. So start there. If you want a movie.
Pardon me.
He likes that scene.
Let's say you want to give Star Trek a real shot. You want to start with a show. Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's the home base of Star Trek, really. I mean, everyone who I've ever talked to that likes Star Trek, everybody likes The Next Generation. I've never met anybody who didn't like it. It's the one place where everyone can agree it's good. A lot of people put it as the best thing in the franchise. Star Trek: The Next Generation is a show that takes place 100 years after the original series. Completely new cast, completely new time, and it was designed to kind of reintroduce people to Star Trek and kind of soft reboot it and kind of change the style a little bit, do things a little bit differently. You know, it wasn't the 60s anymore. I believe the show started airing in 89. And so it's going to kind of, throughout the show, they're going to explain things to you, which is why I think it's the best place to start, because as the show continues and goes on, it's going to explain things to you, it's going to hold your hand a little bit, and it's going to give you a good idea of what Star Trek is about, more so than anything else, because everything else after Next Generation, in terms of the timeline, is kind of building off of that. So if you're going to get into those other shows and enjoy them, to a certain extent, it helps to have seen The Next Generation or have some knowledge of some things that happened in it.
With the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censured, the first thought forbidden, the first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably. Those words were uttered by Judge Aaron Satie as wisdom and warning.
Start with The Next Generation, but there's some caveats. Here's how you watch The Next Generation. You watch the first episode. Watch as much of it as you can stomach. The first episode, Encounter at Farpoint. Watch as much of that episode as you can stomach. When I first watched that episode, I didn't like it. It's not good. It's slow and it's boring and it's stale. I say watch it because get a vibe, get a feel for the characters and be like, okay, so this is the captain, this is the first officer, this is the chief of engineering, all these different characters, trying to figure out what their roles are, so that when you jump into season 3, which is where the show actually starts, you'll have an understanding of what's going on. And the reason I say jump to season 3 is because, as I said earlier, Gene Roddenberry was in charge of the first 2 seasons, and the first 2 seasons of this show were very troubled, and so those first 2 seasons are rough. If you, let's say you watch the first episode, and you're like, I want to get the best of the show. Like, give me what the best that the show has to offer. I'm going to recommend one of the most iconic episodes from not only the series, but from Star Trek in general, which is Season 5, Episode 2, Darmok. This is a great episode that shows the point of Star Trek at this time, which is politics and communication with the species and ethical debates. It's not an entirely debate-filled episode. There is action. You're going to get some action. You're going to get some dilemmas. You're going to get some good character moments. It's going to give you a good balance of everything you want to see from the show. So if you want to just start with the best that the show has to offer, Season 5, Episode 2, Darmok. And that's what Next Generation is as a whole. It's got a good balance of all the different kinds of Star Trek, and it's gonna be the best place to figure out what you like. It's the perfect home base for Star Trek. So if you want to get into it, start with that.
Charlie, what's wrong?
So you're still here, or you're back. That's good. That's what I want to hear. So now we get into the 2 kinds of Star Trek fans. There's people who like talking Trek and action Trek, even in my own family. I like talking Trek. That's me. My dad, he likes action Trek. And there's a lot of times when we don't really like the same Star Trek. We like different things. You know, we both like Next Generation, but for many years, my favorite Star Trek show was... And that is the pinnacle of talking Trek, because Deep Space Nine is a show that is perfect for people that like that stuff. It's very political, and it has a lot of ethical problems that come up all the time, much more than on Next Generation, and much more than even on Voyager, the show that comes after it. And it's very much a show that is just really interested in asking a lot of these questions about what does it mean to be these people in this point in time, in this point in space.
How many people did you kill?
What?
While you were in the underground?
Too many.
Were they all faceless Cardassians? Or did you know who you were killing?
Why are we talking about this?
The backdrop of this whole show is this war that existed between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, which are these two different planets, and everything that's come out of that affects the entire show. And there's this wormhole that's also right outside the space station, which goes to an unexplored area of space. There's a lot of things going on in this show that are swirling around, and they intersect with each other, and they affect one another, and it's such a good show. It's more serialized than the other shows, for sure, of the Berman era anyway. If you're the person who watched Star Trek The Next Generation, and you liked the episodes where they had debates, where they had moral issues, watch Deep Space Nine.
How many Cardassian civilians did you kill?
Look, I regret a lot of what I had to do.
How convenient of you.
We had no choice. We were fighting for survival.
So were we. We had an empire to protect. We needed your resources. Everything I did was for the greater glory of Cardassia. And if you spineless scum had to be ground under, so much the better. All that mattered was Cardassia. I loved my homeland. That's what justified my actions. That's what gave me strength.
Nothing justifies genocide.
What you call genocide, I call a day's work.
If you watch Next Gen and you liked the action, and you liked the Borg, and you liked the big spectacle and the stuff like that, what I would say is you need to jump to the modern stuff. You need to go to Strange New Worlds is probably the best place to go. In my opinion, it's the best of the Kurtzman era, with the exception of Star Trek Beyond. Strange New Worlds is kind of serialized. It's kind of in between serialized and episodic, where there is an overarching narrative to the season, but each episode to episode are kind of doing their own thing. So it's going to feel similar to Next Gen in that regard, but it's much snappier, it's much quicker, the effects are modern, and they're pretty good. I like the cast a lot. I think there's a great cast on that show. But it's not the show to go to if you're interested in complicated, good writing. The show is not interested in that. It's interested in doing action, and I think it takes place like 10 years before the original series, but it's got a lot of that same tone of the Roddenberry era, while also mixing in a lot of the tropes from the Kurtzman era. But it's going to give you action, it's going to give you something to kind of just throw on and enjoy, and it's going to be something that's very digestible. If you like action Trek, jump to the new stuff, because a lot of the new stuff is action oriented. And if you are someone who just kind of can't pick a side, you want to keep the vibe and the tone of Next Gen, watch Voyager. Voyager is my favorite Star Trek show. The thing that I loved about Voyager was, you'll figure out when you start watching Star Trek, is that there's episodes that just don't work because they're all doing their own thing and they're all trying to do different stuff. And so there's going to be duds. And Next Generation has a number of duds, I'm not going to lie. And that's the other thing about Star Trek, is that the Berman stuff especially, but for most of the shows, if you don't like an episode, skip it. Just go to the next one. It's not going to matter. Like when you get into the newer stuff, watching every episode helps because there is more of an overarching narrative. But in the older shows, in the Berman shows, it's not going to matter. They're all doing their own thing. There's 23 episodes a season. There's some stuff that does come back, but I don't think you're going to be penalized for skipping episodes because they explain stuff, which is part of the fun. If you're getting into an episode, if you're 5 minutes in and you're like, this stinks, I'm not feeling this, fuck it, skip to the next one. It's really not a big deal. But with Voyager has this crazy run from like season 5 all the way till early season 7, I would say. They had a crazy run where I liked every single episode. I was like, this is banger after banger after banger. They fucking hit their stride on Voyager. I don't recommend you start with Voyager because it does help to know stuff about Next Gen, but Voyager is so great. It also has a good balance of action track and talking track, but you need a bit of context for some stuff because they're not really going to explain things to you like they would in Next Gen. Next segment. No, we're not doing that. Okay, so before we wrap this thing up, I wanted to address the fact that maybe you clicked this video because you wanted to watch something that caught your eye about Star Trek, and maybe I didn't talk about it. So I just wanted to address some other popular stuff that I didn't recommend and explain why. So first of all, I got to start with the original series.
I'll take you home again, Kathleen.
Here's the thing about the original series. It is very of its time, and I don't mean the effects. It's got
The explosive.
Very well, Captain.
so much of its own style, and I think that the best way to watch the original series is just to pop in. That's how I do it.
Spores.
When you want a taste of it. Because it's not the kind of show that that's why I'm hesitant to recommend it. It can be enjoyed. It can be very fun. And there's episodes from the original series that I love a lot. But I still haven't finished the original series. I haven't seen everything from it. So.
Kill me! Kill me!
Sticking with the original series, maybe you want to watch some of those original series movies. I would say that those are okay to start with. Don't start with the motion picture, the first one. It's very, very slow, and I think that movie in particular is like the final boss for Star Trek fans. If you can get through that movie and enjoy it, you are a tried and true Star Trek fan. Because it's very, very slow and introspective, and it's a test more than anything else. And I think that they were trying for some very experimental things at the time. And as someone who likes movies, I respect what they were going for. But for me, at this point in my life, I don't really rock with it. So it's definitely not the place to start. Wrath of Khan, you've probably heard of Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan is good, and it's a decent thing to watch first. The only problem is it helps to know about Kirk and Spock and Bones and the characters from the original series when you watch that movie. You don't necessarily need to know about Khan, because he's different from how he is in his episode on the TV show. But that movie is much better if you have some context for those characters. It's a lot more cathartic, I'll say that much. It's what a lot of people say is the best Star Trek movie, and I don't disagree, but it's not my favorite. Speaking of favorites, my favorite of the original series movies is Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. That movie is so fucking fun. It's a great it's a comedy movie more than anything else.
Humpbacked people? Whales, Mr. Scott, whales.
But the thing about it is, it's riffing off of Star Trek, so it's changing the formula of Star Trek a lot. it's doing something different without spoiling. And I love that movie, and that's a really good thing for Star Trek fans to watch, but it's not where you start because it doesn't do anything for you if it's breaking the formula when you don't know the formula. So I would say don't start with it. Go back to it after you watch some original series, after you watch Wrath of Khan.
Find humpback whales, then bring them forward in time, drop them off, and hope to hell they tell this probe what to go do with itself.
That's the general idea.
Well, that's crazy.
I love that movie. Watch it eventually, but don't start with that movie. Maybe you're watching this because the new show is out. What's it? Star Trek Academy? Starfleet Academy. That's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, because I saw a trailer that said this is where you should start with Star Trek, and it was like, I cannot imagine. I haven't seen it. In fairness, I haven't seen it. But a show about cadets in the academy is, they've never done anything like that before, so I don't know why you would start with that. I can't imagine that's going to give you the tone of Star Trek. It might give you the tone of Kurtzman era Trek, but it's not going to feel anything like the Berman era Trek or Roddenberry Trek. So maybe don't watch that. That's all I'm saying.
I have a tongue. Good.
So that's about it. I've talked about just about everything I could think to talk about, because I think the best part of Star Trek is finding out your reason for getting into it, finding out your reason for liking it. And that's not something I can do for you. It's something you got to do yourself. But before I go, there's just one more thing I wanted to say. Even though I'm not going to tell you why it's important to watch Star Trek, even though I'm not going to tell you the reason to get into it, I want to recommend one video. I'm going to put the link in the description, and I'm probably going to pin it up here. It's a story that Michelle Nichols, who played Uhura in the original series, it's a great story that she tells about the impact that Star Trek had at that time, and I think that it still holds weight today. And I think that video is it's good for explaining why Star Trek is still around, even though it's not the most popular sci-fi. It's not Dune. It's not Star Wars. It explains why it's lasted as long as it has. Enjoy.
Yep. Hurrah. And I believe it's pronounced tally-ho.